Hi everyone, welcome to On the Other Hand. I'm Ariane Zurcher, and today we're doing lesson number 6. Don't forget to hit that like button, click on the subscribe button and the little bell that pops up for email notifications. I love hearing from you. Leave me comments in the comment section. And let's get started. Okay, so here's where I am. I'm stitching away here. I did 3 cast-on bouillons. I did 7 cast-ons. Then I did loops, 3 loops of 14 cast-ons. This is my GIMP Colonial Knot. I'm going to do a couple of Colonial Knots in GIMP for my shape. So I'm going to show just a little cluster. And I'm going to do a little cluster of these cast-on bullion loops. So this is my scrap piece that I made when I realized I had just forgotten a whole bunch of stuff. This is my GIMP, Suricata. It's on a number 15 Milliners. With the GIMP, it can be hard to do a quilter's knot, so you can go ahead and just make a knot like that. I'm going to come up here. Colonial knot. Remember, you're doing your figure 8. I'm going to put the Colonial Knot video up in the upper right-hand corner for those of you who have no idea how to make one. Just going to pull this through. And there's my Colonial Knot. I'll just do 3 of them right here. I don't have a lot of room on this little guy. Sometimes if it's hard, I use my pliers. It just makes it that much easier. Colonial Knot, so you make your little figure 8, go back down next to but not into the hole you originally your thread emerged from, and you're going to pull your knot through. Now I like to keep these fairly snug, so I'm going to try to keep my tension tight, and I'll do one more here. Again, you put your needle in like this, wrap it around here like a figure 8, and then down. And here, I'm just pulling through, and there's my little cluster of Colonial Knots. All right, to tie off, I showed this in another video, I can't remember which lesson. I do a knot here. Now, if it's too bulky for a knot, you can just lay your thread down like this and weave it in. I do a Colonial Knot, and then I'm going to push my needle around just a couple of times, and I can bury my thread in here because I've got layers. If you don't have layers, obviously you can't do that. And I'm just going to cut it. That's the way I'm ending it. You're not going to notice it on the top. So now I'm using my Oriental Linen, and I'm doing a number 1 Milliners. And I'm going to come up right here next to where my little cluster of Colonial Knots is, and I'm going to do a tiny little loop, cast on loop. So I take just a little tiny stitch right there, just enough to grab enough wool so that I've got something to hold on to. And now I'm going to do my cast-ons, and I'm going to do 14. It's 14. Pull my thread through. And this is going to give me a little cast-on loop. Let me go back, anchor my thread. Take my little stitch right there, just enough to grab some of the wool, but I want to stay pretty close to where that thread is coming out. All right, now I'm going to do my 14 wraps. 14. I'm just going to pull it as tightly as I can. My tiny little stitch right there and start my cast-ons. I did 3 of 14 on this shape. So I did 3 little loops, 14 cast-ons each. And then this is just a regular little 7-stitch cast-on here. And I did the Petite Berry Velvet, a bullion knot, 3 of them. I think I'm going to use Woods of Gold Aurora, and I'll do something in here. I'm using a number 1 Milliners. Oh, I sort of feel like I'm going to do some turkey work here. maybe 5 strands, 5 right in the center, right near where these cast-ons are. I'm going to keep them long. Just kind of hanging out there. Kind of like that. Let's see, I'm going to cut them. So I'm doing my tendril here, and I'm starting it here. Here's my little turkey work in my Aurora that I did. There's my 3 Bullion in the petite very velvet, and those are my cast-ons, my GIMP Colonial Knots. And now I'm going to do my tendril. I'm using a Bullion Needle, by the way. This is my razzle. So I did 30 wraps here. This happens sometimes. You just have to pull it up, and then as you pull this through, I'm holding on here, and I'm just going to start pushing this up. There it is, and I'm going to anchor it down. I'm going to do one more here. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. So that's 40. Take my pliers, and I'm gonna pull this. I don't want this to get distorted, so I have to keep that in mind when I'm pulling. I want to make sure that this back here, this stitch, see how it's pulling? I need that to not pull. And see how it's twisting? That's what I want. And I'm going to anchor that down right there. This one's going to go over here. 15, 16. That's 30. I think 30 is good for this one. I'll pull this with my pliers. And I'm going to anchor it. Do this with my thumb to manipulate them, because I want them to get really skinny at the bottom, like that. This is 28. That. Using my circle template, I'm doing a 5/8 of an inch circle right here on my parchment wool shape. So I'm just going to do a circle here. And I'm going to do a trellis stitch here, and I'm thinking I do it in this. I'm going to use a chenille. So for my trellis, I do a back stitch all the way around this pencil circle. Just going around and around with this. A little hard to see. And I changed to a number 20 tapestry needle. So I'm just going to keep going. I'm not going to do the whole thing. I'm just going to do part of it. One of the things about designing is that, and I've spoken about this before, you start with an idea, and if you cling to that idea as you're developing it, inevitably it leads to problems. This is my experience. So if I have an idea, I need to be open to it being fluid. I need to be open to it shifting and changing and becoming something else as I move through the stages of from idea to putting it on paper or just starting it and then developing it into something like this, a three-dimensional object, and letting go of the original idea as this transforms and just kind of going with it and seeing where it takes you. When I'm able to do that, the whole experience is far more pleasurable. It's not pleasurable when I have an idea and I just stick with that idea, and then as it moves through the various stages, it inevitably shifts and changes. And if I'm holding on stubbornly to that original idea, I can get stuck. That's what happened with this. I had this idea of these river rocks, and there's this kind of serene, almost meditative simplicity to the original concept. And in my jewelry, it actually translated nicely. But with this, it was clear to me really quickly that wasn't going to work. That in order to add stitches to it, I had to let go of the simplicity and move towards something else. Now I'm playing with color and color value. I just have to be open to whatever. I mean, that's really the bottom line. Whatever it is, I got to be open to it and not get pulled down into the bog of, oh, this isn't like what I had originally envisioned, because that's a recipe for just disaster and also frustration, honestly. It makes the whole design process feel really uncomfortable, would be the kind word. You don't want to suffer while you're doing something. But that's how it can feel if you aren't able to just let go and move along with it. What I find often is that as I'm designing something, the more open I can be to discovering where I can take this aesthetically, the more this then becomes something else. It often can veer from the original idea and can be something totally different, but that is equally as lovely as the original idea and sometimes even better. So I just have to remember that when I'm starting to feel frustrated and like I just want to, just bail on the whole thing, which is sort of how I felt with this. I'm just going to bail. All right, so there it is, and I think I'm going to do some little somethings in here. I'm not sure what. Okay, so I'm using straw flower silk ribbon on a 24 chenille, and I'm going to do a bunch of little French knots. I think I might do a little ribbon rose. You act as though you're doing a colonial, you wrap that around, and then you give yourself a couple inches, and you go down the center of the ribbon doing a little running stitch, and then you pull through, and there's your little ribbon rose. I'll do one over here. Give yourself a couple of inches right down the center, and then I'm going to pull this through. All right, I think I might do one more over here, and then I'll do some colonial knots in a different thread. Oh, and I'm going to show you these little bullion crosses. All right, so for the bullion on this shape here, These are 8 to 10 wrap bullion knots using House of Embroidery number 42, which is this one. So I'm going to go ahead and use my number 1 Milliners, and I'm stitching 3 crosses. I could also use a bullion knot needle, which I think I'll do. So there's my bullion knot needle. Here's my number 42 House of Embroidery. Let's see, I think I'll do a couple on this one up here. This is how I do it. I do my first one with 8 wraps, and I'm going to show you why I do it this way. Okay, so that's 8 wraps. Now I'm going to anchor my thread, and then I come to this side, and this is the one that I'm going to cross over. And so I'm going to do 10 wraps on this one. And the reason I do that is because this one is going over the one below it, and so I want it to be just a little bit longer so it can accomplish that. I'm going to do one more over here. Okay. So that's 8. And this one is going to be 10. You don't have to do it this way. This is just what I do. You can do them both 8 wraps. And I'm going to do one more right over here. So there's my 8 wrap. And here is this is going to be my 10 wrap. And there are my little bullion X's. I didn't couch the silken chenille, but it's explained. And if you can't find the silken chenille, you could use an Aurora. The old lace Aurora would be just fine. You can use a number 8 weight, eleganza, sashiko, anything that you have that's kind of this color to couch it. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you found this helpful and has inspired you to try these various stitches on your river rocks. Don't forget to hit that like button, click on the subscribe button so you don't miss any videos. You can click on the little bell that pops up for email notifications. If you click on all, you'll get an email notification when I post another video. I love hearing from you. Leave me comments in the comment section, and don't forget to check out the description section. I leave all the links to these various threads that I'm using in that section so that you can easily find these various threads. Until next time, here's to stitching our River Rocks pouch together.